morning, guys. Hope you're all doing well. Today's video will be a little bit different style from our typical vlogs that we post on this channel. For all the people who have watched during our busy summer season, really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. It means the world to us. But in an effort to stay creative and to keep posting videos on this channel, I am no longer wearing GoPro on my head. I now have a camera pointed at my face, and we're going to give it a shot. We're creating more informational style videos for people who are maybe up and coming in the trade, maybe you've been in the trade for a while, or maybe, just maybe, you want to start your own business in the future. So this will be more of a series, and we're going to have quite a few more videos lined up for the winter. As our season comes to an end, we're obviously no longer on roofs, so the vlog content will be put on hold until our spring season opens back up. So I thought for this first video, I would give you guys a little bit of backstory with how I got into the roofing industry, how I got into the business, and the things I enjoy about it, the things I don't enjoy, some of the pros and cons about the roofing industry as a whole, if you're someone who's looking to get into the trade. So I've been in the roofing industry for most of my life. I grew up with a dad who was in the trades. He owned a business around the same age as me, and he had branches into quite a few different trades. He worked in masonry, bricklaying. He did foundation work, he did home renovations, and roofing was also an avenue of that company. By the time I was born and by the time I was maybe 2, 3, 4 years old, he was already full-time into the roofing business and kind of left some of those other trades behind. It was his busiest and most profitable. And so by the time I was in middle school, high school, my dad would bring me out on my summer breaks. He would show me the ropes of things. He would keep me on, ground cleanup and those kind of things. And kind of just getting my hands wet, showing me how to work, a hard physical labor job. And I think it was super important, regardless of what avenue I took in life regarding work. I think having that kind of foundation of hard physical labor work was really important to me and the discipline that I have now. But when I started, he just kind of kept me on ground cleanup. I would get whatever the guys need. Eventually, as the years went on, I eventually graduated to going up on the roofs, and it was basically the same thing, but just up in the air. And so I did that again for many years. I was always a very visual learner, so I always watched how the guys installed. I fed them shingles, and I learned a lot of the nitty-gritty details just by watching people install. And so by the time my dad actually let me, hold a nail gun and start installing shingles, I already knew how the job was done. And just so there wasn't a huge learning curve there, I kind of was able to just hop right into it and start installing. So for quite a few years, he had me as one of his installers. I was out there on every project, and we would do everything from the tear off to cleanup to installing. So as time went on, I gradually took on more and more responsibility. And he just ended up retiring. This was 3-4 years ago. So I took over ownership after he retired, and we haven't looked back since. So as far as being in the roofing industry, it's been roughly my whole life. As far as running the business, it's been about 3 or 4 years. So still lots to learn, but we're loving every minute of it. So one big question I ask myself throughout the year, or maybe a new employee or whatever it may be, someone who's looking to maybe get in the trade, is why are you in the roofing industry? What keeps you here, or why do you want to join? It's a very physically demanding job. It's a lot of really hard work. In my opinion, one of the hardest trades out there, and it's a very dangerous job as well. And so for me, the reason I always ask myself this question is because I'm a big believer of, especially in running a business, if you're not enjoying it, it's probably best if you find something else. But for me, the thing I love the most is the interactions we have with our customers, the fact that something is always new, it's always different, and the challenge that comes with continuing to grow, try new things within the business, and push things to a different level. So, watching what the competition does and trying to improve on those things, trying to improve the roofing industry as a whole and the way that it was traditionally done years ago, trying to make it as easy and efficient for the customer. And I mean, there's nothing more satisfying for me than completing a project and having a happy customer at the end of the day. All right, so now we're going to start with some of the pros and the cons of the industry as a whole. So I've broken this down into 3 for each list. We're going to start with some of the cons. So obviously the hard work that comes with any tradesman work is going to be up there, particularly with roofing. So it's not uncommon to have a 30-pound tool belt. You'll be climbing up and down ladders. You got a harness, ropes, things to trip on. You're going to be carrying around bundles. You're bent over all day. It's a very taxing job on your body. And we're going to have some future videos coming out hopefully in the next couple weeks that are going to be covering some of the core exercises and routines that you can follow to really help strengthen your body, and that's going to be a big contributing factor to keeping you in good shape and keeping your body strong so it's able to perform those day-to-day tasks without injury, without over fatigue, and just keeping you in good shape long term so that when you're in your 40s, your 50s, you don't have nearly as many cracks, aches, and pains, and it's going to help keep your body maintained and in good shape as you age in the industry if it's something you want to stick with. So my number 2 con is going to be the weather challenges and sometimes inconsistent income. So with chasing around the weather, especially in early spring and summer, you can be looking at quite a bit of rain. I'm sure some of you out there have had roofs torn off. A surprise rain came in and you had to get the thing covered with a tarp or underlay, whatever it may be. And sometimes, you know, throughout the weeks, you may have a couple days where you had to take off because there wasn't anything to do. Depending on who you work for, maybe they can keep you busy, maybe they can't. Definitely something to ask the employer if you're going in for an interview or something like that. What happens on these days? Am I covered? Whatever it may be, but these things can affect how much income you're bringing in at the end of the week. With the weather challenges, it can also make work a lot more dangerous if you're working especially on maybe a pre-prepped roof with underlayment. If that stuff's wet, it can be slippery. A roof as a whole, when it's wet, especially anything over 612, can start to get a little bit dangerous. So it's something to consider, and definitely working in and around the weather can bring its challenges. But at times it can be a little bit fun too. So my 3rd con for this list is going to kind of tie in with the challenging weather, and that is just the dangerous work that comes with being in the industry. So at times, you know, you're going to be hanging off a rope and a harness on a pretty steep roof. You're going to be maybe working off a 2x12 plank, you know, and sometimes you're 3 stories up off the roof, depending on what field of roofing you're in. Maybe you're in commercial, but in residential, this isn't an uncommon thing. So being comfortable on your feet is a huge asset. Being physically fit, being in the gym, taking care of your body can be a huge asset as well. But there's always going to be a risk when you're climbing up on these roofs, so it's always important to take and make sure your employer is making these options available. But always make sure proper PPE, like always make sure you're tied off, your harness is good to go, and that even if, you know, a mishap does happen, that you're safe no matter what, because that at the end of the day is the most important thing. All right, so now we're going to move into some of the pros of the roofing industry. So this is my favorite part. So after all those blood, sweat, and tears are put into a project, you have the roof finished, transformed, and a happy customer. The reward, especially for someone like me, if you're looking to run into, you know, running your own business, the reward aspect of completing a project, you know that you hand installed every single one of those shingles. It's a very good feeling, and there's nothing I've quite experienced quite like it. So it's a very rewarding job, and it's a lot of fun, you know, being on a slope. If you're someone who likes heights, you like the slope, you like the challenge, it's a very fun job. You know, you're hanging out with the guys, you're outside, you're listening to music sometimes, and you're just working away, you know, and it can be a very fun job and a very rewarding one as well. So another big thing for me, and I think of a lot of other tradesmen, is not being stuck in an office. And this is probably because I started in the trades pretty young, so I already knew that, you know, I was kind of born with the habit of working with my hands, and I naturally enjoyed it. But not being stuck inside, being outdoors in the fresh air, the fresh vitamin C, the sun hitting you, it's a great feeling. And it's something that I wish everybody could experience at least a couple times. All right, so finally, and this is probably the thing that most of you, if you're just coming into this trade, are going to look forward to the most. After all those blood, sweat, and tears are put into that project and you risked your life doing it, you should come home with a pretty solid paycheck. So this is going to differ from company to company, whether you're working with someone who's big or small. If you're putting in the work and you're learning, you're getting better. Eventually, when you start getting a nail gun in your hand and you start installing, you should be making pretty good money. Regardless of those few rain days that you have during the peak season, you should be bringing home a steady paycheck. Never be afraid to shop around a little bit, make sure you're being taken care of, And you know, a lot of roofing companies don't include any kind of benefits package, so you want to make up for that a little bit and make sure that the paycheck you're bringing in is going to be able to supplement that as well. So if you're thinking about getting into the roofing industry, it is not an easy path, but it is an incredibly rewarding one. It's all about learning, working hard, and building a reputation for great workmanship. If you're up for the challenge, it can lead to a great long-term career. All right, well, that's pretty much the end of this video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of this series coming out over the course of the winter months. And we'll have a workout series coming out in the near future, as well as our podcast coming soon as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one.